Hello, everybody. We're going to have a mailbag episode tonight. Terps are off this week in basketball, and obviously the football season's over, so kind of doing a special episode here. Everybody can get their questions in. We've got a bunch from the message board already. We've got a few coming in from Twitter as well, from X.
Drop them in chat, y'all.
And everybody live, drop them in chat. Hunter Riggs, that is not a question. I'm not allowed to say that on the air.
But that's the right sentiment all the time.
That is the right sentiment. Yeah, so Sunday, Maryland played Purdue, and I met up with the old ACC boards crew.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You guys remember Pooh Terp and Route 1 Rebel? Pooh Terp decided to start this whole thing, and there was about 20 people there. And
you got 20 of the old school, the ACC boards types? Like
about eight of the people there were people from the board.
Okay.
And then the rest were like friends and family and stuff.
I mean, this thing was 30 years ago. I mean, that's like legit as 54K dial-up kind of thing.
Yes. So Pooh Terp was there, Pamela, and Route 1 Rebel, Steven. They used to be married. They used to actually were the ones who hosted the ACC board tailgates at the Maryland football games.
Wait, Steve was there too?
Steve was there.
Awkward.
He lives in Florida. They're on good terms. And their daughters.
Inside StephenPoohRadio.com.
That's right. That's right.
It was fine. It was fine. And Hoagie was there. Hoagie, multiple times when things were not going well during the game, he just up and left. And people are like, where's Hoagie? He just
that's what he does.
So anyway, and I bet on the game because I was feeling good. And
the Maryland cover, that was really close, right? Did they?
I bet money
5.5.
It was 3.5 by the time I bet.
It's 3.5 or 4, I think, most of the time. I got close.
When I was on FanDuel, it was 3.5, and I was like, they're either winning outright or they're losing. So I'm just doing the money line. And I was getting 1.6 to 1, and I was like, I think they're better odds than 1.6 to 1. And if it wasn't for the refs, they would have done it.
Do they give you some of your money back for the moral victory aspect of it, or is that not part of the?
There is a button for the refs cheated you, and
oh, cool.
Yeah, so I
like these new innovations in gambling technology.
Yeah,
like a ref loss button.
There was a ref loss button.
I didn't think it was a ref loss. You guys think it was really a ref loss?
No.
Purdue got a decent whistle.
I'm joking, but yeah.
I think a lot of a couple of the fouls on Julian Reese were a little bit reputational, shall we say?
That's for sure.
I think that hurt them pretty bad at a bad time. But no, it's not a ref loss. It was just it was a Big Ten. It was a Big Ten loss because that's what Big Ten refs do, especially in the second half. Home teams they're getting the best whistle they get all year. I mean, it's really hard. It's really hard to win on the road in this conference, as we've seen already. 2 games into the season, there have not been a lot of wins on the road, even by better teams. So, reffing has a little bit to do with that. I think you got some guys who like playing to the crowd a little bit, but this was not a ref loss. Purdue's a good team. Maryland got cold at the wrong time, right as Purdue got hot, hit a couple threes. Braden Smith went off.
Braden Smith, my God, that guy.
He's good.
Jesus.
I maintain, though, and I'm not going to dissect any of like the culture war or sociological stuff around it, but I do think that Julian Reese gets a bad whistle in part because of who his sister is, and a lot of people don't like her.
Well,
I hadn't thought of it that way, but
I mean,
I think subliminally there's a good chance that some of these, because a lot of people, I guarantee you some of these refs are probably haters because there's so many of them. I mean, some of it's him. At this point, he should have learned better to play without, especially the dumb fouls, the ones that just, you're not gaining anything. It's all risk and no reward. But they could have used him. That was huge. Once he went out, Kaufman Wren really gave Queen some trouble in the post. He scored 3 buckets in less than a minute, and that's what flipped the whole game. As good as Queen was,
Well,
he got
that when Maryland was up 6 and Braden Smith had a personal 9-0 run, including blocking. Did he block Gillespie? Is that what it was? Like, God, that guy was
good.
He was really good. I think Willard was playing with fire by going under those screens on their 3-point shooters. Like, I don't know how, for a guy who has a reputation as as someone who makes a lot of, changes, like whatever Rothstein's, quip about him is, I don't know how he didn't come out in the second half and think, all right, let's go over these screens and make these guys drive and beat us. We got 2 big guys who can protect the rim. Let's make them earn these. But once they started hitting those threes, I mean, these were easy shots. These were wide open shots. They were just missing them earlier. And they didn't miss them in the second half, but during that run. And really the biggest ref thing in terms of anything for me wasn't even really Julian Reese's fouls. It was Kaufman-Renn looking like a pulling guard out there on those moving screens and just not a peep from anybody about it. I mean, I think he damn near hip checked somebody into the Maryland bench one time and there was nothing called. So that was annoying, but like Purdue's good. Like just because they went to Penn State and played like ass, I think maybe because they did that made that game a lot harder for Maryland because you knew they were going to come home.
Oh, yeah.
Figure it out. Like that's going to be a top 25 team all year. And it's a bummer if you're a Maryland fan because that would have got you in the rankings. You probably wouldn't have been able to hang out there for the next 3 weeks before they play somebody with a pulse. But it's what are you can do?
And it's probably a top 15 team all year, I would say. I mean, it's typical Matt Painter. They don't have like obviously Braden Smith's a great player, but they don't have any kind of athletic freak. Half the guys, they have, as always, look like future accountants. But they got so much experience. He's so good. And the continuity from these keeping their team together, they'll probably remain top 15 and then probably lose in the first round of the tournament or second round. But it's as good as they just needed more from Juju, I thought. And I thought Selton Miguel kind of hurt them in the first half. I still feel like he's a little bit of a ball stopper at times. The passing to me is probably their biggest weakness as a team. I think Gillespie also recognizes the cutters a little bit late. That's not his game. He's really good at scoring and probing into the paint. But the biggest thing now is like we still aren't going to know for another 10 days or longer than that for a while have any clue how good they really are, right? Because they played those 2 top 10 teams, Purdue and Marquette, really well. Could have won either one, didn't. And the non-conference schedule was so soft that even though the eye test tells us that they have a chance to be really good, there's not any data other than the Ohio State game, which Ohio State is probably not a top 25 team. They're a solid team, and they kicked the hell out of them, but that's the only good win.
The only thing you're going to get from Ohio State is when Bradshaw gets back, they might be a top 25 team. It's just they certainly weren't when they played them the other night. And
I think they're good. I think the eyeball test is accurate, but we've all been fooled before, and we won't know with St. Francis in 27 days or whenever that game is won't tell us. So,
yeah, I mean, they've got to beat Syracuse and Newark. I mean, Syracuse looks like trash right now, but, still got a nice brand name to get on the resume to go with Ohio State. And then that West Coast trip in the new year is probably going to tell you something. They got to go to Oregon and Washington back-to-back. That's obviously not going to be easy. And, I guess I'm in a situation where I'm pretty sure that they are top 25 type good, if not better. But, like, eventually you got to beat somebody, right? So, they go out there.
Syracuse is really down this year.
They're garbage. But, like, that's one you have to have. I mean, you can't lose that game. But when you go on that West Coast trip, that's when it's like, all right, well, you can't lose both of those. Like you really kind of got to go out there and beat the Ducks, right? Go out there and show that you can do it. Oh yes, apologies. Syracuse game is in Brooklyn, not Newark. I don't know. I got my urban morasses wrong. Apologies on that. Points the same.
Did we do a show since the Villanova game in Newark?
Yeah.
Last
week.
Okay, because I actually went to that. And that was a lot of fun. That was the first. I'm trying to remember if how many other times I've been to road basketball games. Not often. I do more for football, but it was fun. There was a lot of Terps in the bar there, and obviously they won, so that made it really good. And that's actually could end up being a good win too if Nova turns themselves around. Like by the end of the year, that could end up being a really solid resume.
Yeah, they
builder.
beat Cincinnati right after
Yeah.
that. Cincinnati was number 16, I think, or 14 at the time. I don't know how they've done since then. I haven't looked, but yeah, the Ken Palm loves them and the net loves them, so I guess it's not that big of a concern. But
Yeah.
visually,
Yeah, for once the analytic numbers are helping them as opposed to hurting them, which is really nice. So
Well, it's funny because they played such turd opponents, but they beat the piss out of them. So the analytic, like that's what the analytics want you to do. Just can you beat the number you're supposed to? So it'll be actually kind of funny at the end of the season if their analytics are great and Willard's just like, yeah, shut up about the schedule. I know what I'm doing. That would be kind of ironic and fun.
Everybody who's here with us live, notice the title of the episode, Mailbag episode. We've gotten a bunch of questions from the Maryland at 247sports.com message board, the premium message board there. We've gotten a few from Twitter. We see one so far in the YouTube chat. We're going to keep talking for a little bit. We're probably going to start that in about 5-10 minutes. Throw your questions in there. We'll get to them. We'll answer all of those. Basketball, we're going to get to it in the questions that are coming up. But recruiting wise, do you want to cover any of that? Or you just want to wait till the questions come up because they're coming?
Yeah, we can wait for the questions.
Okay. So football wise, Loxley.
Man, talk about shocking the world. I mean, a lot of people talk about shocking the world. This one actually kind of did a little bit.
Yeah.
Literally the highest rated, and this doesn't count yet because he's not signed, but if he signs, yes, we all know that's far from a foregone conclusion with a 5-star player a year ahead of time with NIL. But if he does sign, he will be the highest rated recruit in program history. Zion Ely will.
I was looking at that. I don't think 24/7 had him. I think they had Diggs higher. And I think they had, who was the other one? I think they had him third.
Maybe the composite. It might have been the composite I was looking at. Or maybe the composite is default. Either way, at least in terms of overall ranking, he's the highest because Diggs was number 8 or 9 nationally. And Zion Ely is number 2.
But the rating, actual
the
rating.
0.99472.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Diggs was almost a perfect 1.
Yes, highest ranked, not highest rated.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they say this kid is phenomenal. Obviously, he is to be the number 2 player in the country. One of our guys, 24/7, wrote recently that if not for the quarterback that's number 1, whose name escapes me at the moment, if he wasn't so good, over the top good, then Ely in most years would be the number 1 player in the country. And, that's something we just haven't experienced before, but this whole landscape hasn't been experienced before. Crazy things happen every day now. And they're bringing, I don't know if this is one of the questions. Hopefully I'm not spoiling a listener question, but they're bringing in Emmanuel Iheanacho, the offensive tackle from Georgetown Prep this weekend, who's close with Ely and has been talking he's very fond of Loxley, and Maryland has been talking about it for months. So, we'll see. NIL makes everything hard to predict, but they're in decent shape there. Two of the top 5, 2 top 5 players going to Maryland would be,
this early.
Yeah,
it would be crazy.
And then you just got to sweat it out for the next year.
Although if you're going to sweat it out in terms of money, if you're going to doing it a year where this house settlement comes into play next summer is the year to do it, because Maryland can be competitive money-wise in a way that they probably couldn't have in the last few years. So, I mean, it every once in a while, you just get a little bit lucky, and it feels like with this class, and obviously with Malik Washington from the current class being a bit of a ringleader in the way that we've thought other guys might be in the past. I mean, you could really start to see something special here a little bit. Obviously these guys watched Maryland play last year, and that wasn't enough to turn them off. So there's a lot to be hopeful for on the football front if you're patient and Locks can make the right kind of hires and get the right guys out of the portal, so that next year they can at least be competitive and can kind of keep that floor where it is, so you can sell to these guys that they can be the ones to raise it even higher.
We need to go in after the fact and edit this to like a black and white video of us saying this about Dwayne Haskins and those guys, and then cut back to us saying the exact same things, looking much younger, about Stephon Diggs. But that just because it didn't work the other times doesn't mean it can't work at some point. You got to keep trying, and this is the latest iteration of the local movement deal that Loxley's attempted several times. I think it has a little more juice to it this year. Obviously it does, based on the rankings of those guys, and then now you can make business deals, so there's a whole new dynamic in play. So that could be huge for them down the line, but it's not going to pay off unless they kill it in the portal this year and get the program back on track. None of these guys are going to help next year. Even obviously the 2026 guys won't, and most of them won't help the following year because they'll be true freshmen. Malik Washington, those guys, that freshman class isn't going to do a ton next year either. So you got the portal, this is all really exciting stuff for down the line, but they got to kick ass in the portal to fill a lot of those positions that struggled this year.
All right, well, we got a bunch of more questions from the live chats. We've got a bunch to go through. I say we get to that, and a lot of the things we wanted to talk about are covered by these questions. Before we do that, since you brought them up, I'm going to play this real quick.
This is Stephon Diggs, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Wow, I didn't know we had it. I didn't remember that one. When did we have him on?
Yeah, Stephon Diggs.
We had him on as a recruit, I'm pretty sure.
No, he was playing for the Vikings at the time. He was off. He was playing on a Monday night. I have his number in my phone.
Well, that was a good get right there.
Yeah. Solid.
You did it, Jeff.
Even though I totally forgot about it.
Yeah, you did it. All right, let's get to the questions. We'll start with the message board questions first. Maryland.247sports.com message board. The first one came in from Terp Meister, and it's kind of a three-parter, all surrounding the same stuff. Where do things stand with Maryland's implementation of the proposed NCAA settlement? Do you know how they are handling things for 25 and 26 recruits and the portal, since the settlement isn't final until April? And do you think this will help Maryland's recruiting? Paul, you kind of talked about it. Do you want to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, Jeff's probably more of the subject matter expert here, but I mean, obviously all these schools are going to have this actual money from the TV deal, from the athletic department, to use for NIL purposes outside of the collectives. And obviously, Jeff, I think, wrote an article about this, maybe even today, about the tax issues with the collectives. So maybe you want to pick it up from there.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated, like inside baseball stuff that most people, except for like the hardcore, college sports recruiting business nerds like us, will be interested. But the short version is that donations are no longer tax deductible, so that's caused some turnover in terms of Maryland's operation and a company that they were affiliated with for the fundraising. But fundraising is not going to be as important as it was before, because it's all going to be coming, that $20 million is going to be coming from the school, from their operating budget. Obviously, they'll still need to raise money, pay for scholarships as always, especially if the scholarship limit goes up, then you're having to come up with more money. I mean, what you're going to have to do is find a way to generate more revenue. Basically, what Tennessee, I think, is doing they have a talent fee or something. Wow, that's a bad call to miss. Okay, so they have.
You want to hop off for a minute?
Yeah, go get it.
You guys would
I
like
can
to
take
listen
over
to that one.
Go get it.
Somebody I've been trying to get for a few days.
Well,
yeah, fuck off.
Get it. Get them.
It's all right.
It's who we've been talking about.
It's somebody. So anyways,
all right.
Where was it? Anyways, long story short, they're going to have to pay $20 million. Tennessee is doing a talent fee, I think is what they're calling it, where they're adding I think 10% of each ticket price to go into NIL. So now it's all commercialized. The amount that you'll need to fundraise is lower. People will still be fundraising on top of that, but it's going to be monitored. Like I think I said last week on the show, you can't, any deal over $600 that's not just a school revenue share, that's like a quote NIL deal, is going to have to be evaluated and to ensure that it's proper market value. So, I don't know. Again, like I said last week, I don't know how the hell you enforce that, but that's going to make it to where it's going to be hard to just, do a bunch of quote NIL deals for kids where you're just handing them money like you are now. So I think it's going to level the playing field. I've heard there's a ton of confidence at Maryland about, the amount that football will have. Basketball should have a pretty healthy budget too. I think they have an easier time raising money on top of it, so they can do that too. But it's the entire thing is changing more rapidly than like anything I think we've ever seen in sports.
All right, Jeff, stop talking. Go take your call. Put on mute. Good. See, Mr. Popo says take the call.
Yeah.
Take the call. Go take
the
right.
call. You're on mute. We'll handle the rest of this.
You guys can read my lips and see if you can get the scoop.
There you go.
I'm gonna do what they do.
It's one of two people. If it's that you said you've been trying to give it the last. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go do that.
Yes.
I do want to tack on for a second about the issues with the collective. This is not a thing Maryland did on their own. There were a bunch of schools that were affiliated with this company that was basically trying to make collective donations tax deductible. So it was actually, I kind of appreciated in a weird way that they were trying to do something that was maybe on the fringes of what was allowed, as opposed to doing the typical Maryland thing. And that's just like being the most small c conservative about everything possible. So it sucks that it got shut down, but it's they were trying. Let's put it that way.
All right. I got a question that you and I can do. It's an opinion-based thing. It's not that we can do. From Ben Linton, he sent it in on YouTube. What's the standard for locks/Washington era? Are we back to Mayo Bowls or potential for more? You want to go first?
That's the question, isn't it? I think what we talked about at the end of last year was this season would speak a lot about, we haven't really done a perspective on the season necessarily yet, but this year was going to be about, can Locksley raise the floor so that when they have a down year, it's not a 2 or 3 win season. It's like a 5 or 6 win season.
Or 4.
In this case, I think it was kind of a push. Like nobody's happy with 4 wins. Nobody's like, oh man, 4 is better than 2. But the bottom didn't feel like it completely dropped out either. And you're not seeing like 30 guys leave the program on day 1 on the portal. So I think when you look at the Malik era, the first issue is that Malik is a quarterback, so he's important in college football, but that's not everything. And even guys who come out and are highly ranked don't always work out. How many times we've gotten 4-star quarterbacks that didn't work out here?
So many.
A lot, right? You could probably go do a list, and it's a pretty sad list.
I'm sure the chatters can start sending them in.
Right. So, if Malik ends up being pretty good, then yeah, you'd like to think that on his own, he might be worth an extra win or 2, but you do need the levels in the program to go up. And I think more than anything, you can't have such huge talent disparities at position groups like you had this year. Like, you can have position groups that aren't so good. You can't have an offensive lineman that can't block anybody in the conference. You can't have a cornerback, a secondary situation where, one injury to Dante Trader on top of the corners not being particularly good, Husky not really panning out, completely blows your defense. You just can't compete that way. So I think the lesson for Locksley is making sure that across the board, you've got enough guys who can play at a Big Ten level to keep you afloat. And if you've got a really good quarterback, he can kind of raise that level even higher.
How much of that is, you say a lesson. Everybody knows that. That's been Maryland's issue forever. They can cobble together a top 22 that can hang with good teams. The problem is when you get into a season and there starts to be attrition, fatigue, injuries, academic issues, whatever, what have you, losses of players and players getting hurt, that's where Maryland starts to lose, and the big boys keep trucking along because they got 2 and 3 deep of the same thing, and Maryland doesn't. So
But
that's not a lesson. That's
I would argue this year with the cornerbacks and offensive line, they didn't even have the starters that were good.
Yeah,
enough.
you're right. You're right about that.
That's what I'm saying. Like if you still had that 22 you could count on, I don't think this is a 4-win team. I think this is a bowl team if you had 22 who were good enough. But they didn't have 20. They didn't have starters who were good enough in those two position groups, and it killed them on both sides of the ball.
Yeah. So the second half of Ben's question was, are we back to is Maryland back to Mayo Bowls, or is there potential for more? There's definitely potential for more, especially I've been kind of saying this for a while, that if the NCAA has this salary cap thing and they enforce it, Maryland has that puts Maryland on equal footing with big boys
in a way, right? It evens the odds in a way that they haven't been able to do that in quite a long time.
Without it, then they need the NIL. It seems like the NIL is better. So the potential, and with the local talent potential, yes. Can you achieve it? Hasn't been done in a while, and hasn't been done consistently since like the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know where I'm at on this. Like, I don't have expectations higher than Mayo Bowl because we've never done that consistently. So I would love for that to happen. I'd love for Maryland to be Indiana next year, but is that likely? Probably not. But now, if you start getting guys like Zion and Iheanacho and these guys who are big time guys, here's the thing that's interesting to me, and that kind of parlays off of your point, Larry. I feel like in this NIL era, it's going to be easier for Loxley to get these freshmen to come in and play here because they're not stuck here, right? If you are a 5-star recruit and you're local and you be like, you know what, I'm going to play for a year or two in front of mom and dad and, I know I'll get a chance at better playing time out of Maryland as opposed to an elite program. I'm going to play here. And if I want to, or if I get the opportunity to, when I'm a, sophomore, junior, senior, I can just go leave and play 1 year for an elite program and then go to the draft. So when Loxley's talk about Maryland being a developmental program, I don't think that necessarily is a bad place to be if you're Maryland. Like, get the talent in here when they're young. If they decide to leave later, you can't stop that. But it feels like now these guys don't have to make a decision that they're stuck with for their entire careers, or is going to cost them a year to transfer, or not be able to get as much money, all that stuff.
That's coming because you cannot have this. What's coming is contracts, a collective bargaining agreement, salary caps, all this, it's coming.
It's possible, and if that happens, it's almost impossible to say where that's going to leave Maryland. But just looking at the situation right now, I think Maryland might be in as good a place to bring in highly touted freshmen as it's ever been.
All right, we got a question from, Jeff is still on that call. I hope it's a long call, so that's good.
We're getting some scoops here. This is good.
All right. Also from YouTube, JGav10. Is this team more talented than the 2019-20 team with Sticks and Cowan? I'll start and say talent, yes, but experience and cohesiveness as a team, not yet.
I think I would agree with that. And I'm pulling up the roster right now just because I want to double check before I say anything for sure. But so on that team, you're looking at Anthony Cowan as your starting point guard. You're looking at Aaron Wiggins, Eric Ayala, Morcell, Hakeem Hart when he was playing well, and Dante Scott and Sticks. I think this team is more talented. Probably, I really do. I think Gillespie has been above and beyond what we could have expected coming into this season. I mean, I thought he'd be good. I didn't think he'd be this good. Obviously, Derek Queen is playing at an All-American level, like let alone freshman All-American. I mean, he's just walked into the Big Ten and looks like he's going to be a first-team All-Conference. and Reese, even though he's up and down and he's always been inconsistent, he's obviously very talented. Miguel, as Jeff says, he's a bit of a shot hunter and a ball stopper, but like when he's on, he's really good.
Rice is very good.
Rice has obviously shown that he's a capable Big Ten starter. I mean, you've got guys who can play. Geronimo's a defensive, stopper type guy. You've got whatchamacallit. So, I'm blanking. Too many names go through my head, but I like this team. I like this team a lot. We'll see whether all the pieces come together so they can really make a run. But talent-wise, I think they're as talented as any team probably since that Mello sophomore year team that we were pumping up pretty big.
Yeah. Also, Morcell and Hart on those teams weren't their
final product.
Yes. So
yeah, I mean,
Morcell
was still shooting like 20% from three, and even Ayala was a sophomore, so he was okay, but he was not a guy that was killing it. Aaron Wiggins was still finding himself a little bit.
Related question from Kevin Litz on YouTube: is this a Sweet 16 team? I think basically you're asking, are they ranked in the top 16? I think it's marginal. I think it depends on who they play and can they win the game. I would say 50-50.
I think so, but they haven't proven it yet, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I still think they've got to go out and beat some teams. Like, it's really good that they've got these moral victory losses against two top 10-ish, top 15-ish teams, but they gotta go out and do it. But I think they will. That my prediction would be that they will. I'm really actually kind of bullish about these guys right now.
Okay. We had two people ask, one on IMS, on Maryland.247sports.com, and one on X, Seftical and Terps 447 asked similar questions, but this is, should the Terps be aggressive to secure next season's starting quarterback in the portal, or roll the dice on what they have now plus Malik? Should they? I don't think they are. I think Billy's the starter with Malik as the number 2, and I think probably, I won't even say maybe, I'll say probably sometime during the season he kind of edges him out and takes him over. That's my prediction for it.
You never ever want to count on a true freshman coming into college football, even a great true freshman quarterback coming in and being really good right off the bat. If that happens, that's great. The chances of that happening are probably not great. So the hope is, and it looks like they are trying to work on a deal with Billy to make sure that he's coming back and he's going to be the senior starter. And then Malik can kind of sit behind him, learn the offense. Obviously, Loxley has taken him under his wing already. He's already been on campus on weekends, hanging out with Lox and talking shop and stuff like that. So, if you're in a situation where you've got Billy back and you've got Malik there as your number 2 or nominal number 3 behind a Champ Long or somebody, that's fine. You want to give Malik all the chances in the world to take that job. And if he's that good, great, but you can't count on that.
We have a couple of questions from Nate Clater on 247 Sports. The first one, when you factor...
First of all, I just love you having to pronounce the goofy screen names.
That's how you pronounce it. I know him.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, he's a lacrosse guy, and so I've seen him at lacrosse games, and then then it kind of carried over into football tailgates and everything too. He's got a great family. Him and his wife come with their kid, and you love seeing that. You need more of that, right? So,
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So I love they're awesome. Okay. When you factor in a standard rate of inflation at 3% and the rising rates of athletes in NIL, the market will only get more skewed. When you balance those numbers against the year-to-date of the S&P 500 of 28.28%, it begs the question, who is going to be the next football recruit? So he's being funny there. Obviously,
Man, my brain almost broke just listening to you say that stuff
I
out
know.
loud.
I don't even think it quite made sense, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was the joke of what he was going for. Obviously, it's Emmanuel Iheanacho.
Iheanacho.
Iheanacho?
Yep.
Sure.
Only because I
Iheanacho?
know some soccer players with that last name, and that's how it's pronounced by them. So I'm going
Iheanacho?
with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Iheanacho.
Iheanacho. There you go. That's my prediction.
Well, he's on campus on Friday, right? I mean, clearly they're trying to take advantage of the Zion commitment and get him and Malik in front of all these guys, and more power to him. This actually used to be the old the big official visit weekends that they used to have for the current class when signing day used to be in February, right? So I imagine they're using these days as kind of big junior days now. So hopefully they get all those guys on campus and start getting in their ear, and maybe you can convince them all to come. I mean, that's the plan, right? It's always the plan. But certainly they made some waves by getting Zion to commit so early too. I mean, of all the times Maryland had big recruits, Wes Jefferson back in the day, Diggs, all these guys, they've come late. They've come on signing day, or Jared, even like they've come on signing day or around signing day. They've never had a guy this good this early. Like, this feels like a bit of a difference. And it feels a little bit like, I know we fret about, having to hold on to guys until they actually sign. This doesn't feel like one that the kid would make this kind of decision this early without this really being where he wants to be, especially if he's able to bring in a bunch of other guys with him who are local. So I don't know, man, but I tell you, following football recruiting is going to be a lot of fun, because there's going to be a lot of action in the portal soon too.
Well, not only that, he commits, and it's off the back of a top 25 class with Washington, Malik Washington. Those guys back to back, and the two of them are recruiting for the program now.
Yeah.
Wow. Like,
that feels like a bit of a sea change, because I remember, we've had Pied Pipers before, like Kasim Hill. Kasim Hill, I think he was a 4-star quarterback. He was St. John's guy, WCAC guy, knew all those guys. And he committed fairly early. I think he was a late summer commit, maybe in August. So that was early enough for him to help build up a little bit of momentum. And they got a great class that year. That was Lorenzo Harrison. There were a couple other 4-star DeMatha guys.
Tino Ellis, I think, was a 4-star.
Tino Ellis was in there. Yeah, like that kind of group.
Yeah.
And they were actually to be able to make some waves there. So now, with a whole year ahead of time, I mean, these guys could really do some damage.
I think that was also the year they had, I think, 4 mid 3-star wide receivers, but one of them was Dante Demas. I think that was that year, right?
No, Demas wasn't. Demas was after that.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure. I'm almost certain. DJ Turner was one of them.
Yeah, they were all. I thought.
There were a lot of 4-stars in that class. I do remember that for sure.
Well, all the receivers were 3-star, but one of them ended up being, well, apart from the injury, he was going to be an NFL level player until he got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah, that class did not end with the way that you would have liked.
Yeah.
But what are you gonna do?
And everybody from DeMatha is overrated anyway. So
I mean, clearly,
including radio hosts. All right.
Oh yeah.
Here we go.
I've heard worse things than that for sure, than overrated.
Enclator Part 2. Will there be a lacrosse live show in the spring? Hasn't been discussed yet. Probably. So, yeah.
There should be.
Yeah. It gets, when Sunday I said I was at the ACC board thing, one of the people there said that's their favorite show that we do. So,
really?
Yeah.
Impressive.
I mean, it gets about 1/5 of the audience of the other shows, but, hey.
Take what you can get.
Yeah. Okay. We're getting some of the questions now are starting to get into stuff where we're going to need Jeff, but we have a few here. From Anthony Sue Kim, on the message board on Maryland 247sports.com. Anthony Sue Kim asks, who will make all conference teams in basketball? Well, two people are obvious.
Yeah.
Queen and Gillespie. And then Reese, I think, could be a second or third, and Rice could be as well. But with 18 teams in the conference now, it's way harder to get into one of those 15 spots as one of the top three. Queen will be on the all-freshman team.
Yeah.
So he'll be that.
He'll be on the
Queen,
all-freshman team. He doesn't play a game for the rest of the season.
Yeah, him and Gillespie will be on some team. They look like both like they could be first team, first or second.
They very well could. I think Reese is probably going to be doomed to honorable mention, just because he's not consistent enough, and Queen's going to get all the pub and all the attention. So, and Rice, I think is worthy of probably another honorable mention type, because he's proven himself to be a really good player and fairly consistent as well. So. I think Queen and Gillespie, I would probably bet something that at least one of them would be first team.
Right now, it looks like Queen.
Yeah, and the other would probably be second or third in the end. Which, again, when you're talking about expectations, if it turns out that Maryland has guys who are first or second team All Big Ten, two of them out of 15 spots, you got to win some games.
And with 18 teams now, though,
right.
It gets harder and harder the more conference teams there are. You get that much more competition. So,
I mean, there's a lot of guys out there, and if you got two of those guys who are even in the discussion, you got to go out there and win.
Yeah. Okay. We have a comment from Dan Hartle. We need a health check on Jeff. So for
I actually like that he put as his title "not entering the portal." Whereas it does look like he's entered a portal of some kind, like a transport, like a Stargate or something.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing. We all want Jeff on this phone call. We want that because that means there's stuff coming for us.
Right. If you are just tuning in, about 15 minutes ago, Jeff got a phone call and he said, "Oh, that's a call I should have took." And we're just like, "No, leave the show, go take it, and then come back." So
even he's still in the chat, we're saying go take it.
He's still gone, so don't blame us that he's gone. That's not our fault. But he's doing the Lord's work here. So just let the man cook.
He'll be back. We're going to keep going with questions from Freezing Odin on the Maryland at 247sports.com message board. Percent chance Queen is gone after this year. If
you take that one, Larry. So give me your first one.
I feel like he loves Maryland and likes being close to home. In high school, he went to IMG. He was gone for 3 years, and he got that feeling of, hey, I'm going to go away and have this experience. He got it. And now he came back home, and he wants to be back home. It's why he came to Maryland. And I feel like he really likes it. I feel like there's a chance if Maryland can get some money that he'll stay. I don't think that's the favorite. I think the most likely option is that he is going to go because he's that good. I think he's a first rounder and maybe even a lottery pick. And I think he's likely going to go. But I do think there's a chance. I'll put it at 20% that he stays.
20% that he stays?
Yes.
Yeah, so the good news is in the NIL era, compared to, say, a G League or an NBA minimum contract, Maryland can at least make him an offer, right? You've got a chance in a world where 5 years ago you just had absolutely no chance. So I would still say the chance is probably like, 5%, 10% tops, but you at least got a shot. Whereas, he's been so good recently, clearly, I think arguably better than anybody could have realistically expected him to be. The fact you even got a chance is great, because looking at a team next year with just Kapare as your only big guy is something that I'm not really ready to address.
Across football and basketball, there are a lot of players now who are staying for extra years that could go pro. So that's why my percentage is higher than that. Because
I agree with the premise. I mean, I think clearly he's not a huge threat from the college 3-point line yet, let alone the NBA one. So that's going to be a hindrance. But everything else he does is so good.
He's so good. He's so good.
His basketball IQ is just higher than I think anyone I've ever seen, like including point guards and the Steve Blakes of the world. Like,
also, he's like Herter was like that as well, Kevin Herter, but would just like make passes out of nowhere and like tip the ball and always anticipate and be in the right spot. Like he did that too. But I think Queen is even more.
Yeah, Queen's just on another level. It's just his level. He's still kind of a below the rim guy. That's, your athleticism is what it is at this point. They've clearly been able to scrape off some of that baby fat. But, he needs to be able to really show that he can shoot all the way out to the 3-point line and beyond. And I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that in 1 year. Whether that alone is enough, plus a good offer for him to come back next year, I still doubt it. But you at least got a shot. Whereas also, 5 years ago, you didn't.
Steve Blake was like that too. He had a sixth sense about where people were going to be, leading people with crazy passes. Obviously, the Ohi steal. He was always like anticipating and seeing the court in a way other people weren't. He was like that too.
Yep. And you could point out, you could make a YouTube video or something if you were good at that type of thing, of just Queen turnovers from making a play that somebody should have been on the end of and just wasn't because they weren't thinking at the same level that he is. Like he's an incredible player. Like I'm actually DVRing some of these games because I want to keep them around to be able to watch this guy when he's gone, because this is really a treat.
Yep. Okay. I got a football question I think you can answer. From X, Ethan Radolph. How many offensive linemen and quarterbacks does Maryland need to take in the portal?
Yes. All of them.
Yeah, all of them.
Do you want to come? Come on in. I mean, let's see. So Kaltenberger's gone, right? Were there any other seniors on the line at this point?
Yeah, like 3 of them starters were seniors.
Was it? Because I'm trying to remember.
Wasn't Bob was a senior, right?
See, I don't remember.
Somebody look it up for us.
Yeah, that's it. That's why I'm trying to get the roster up, because we can do that type of thing. But realistically, I mean, even if it was a situation where you had a bunch of those guys coming back, you still need some real help. I mean, you got Roy and Heron. I know they've got at least one more year left. You've got to figure out what you're doing at center. That's obviously a big thing.
Carcosa,
Bunyan's gone. Bunyan's gone. So you've got
Long is gone, and I know he ended up not playing very much, but he's gone.
Right. You've got Isaiah Wright coming back. He was a transfer from Buffalo last year they had penciled in as a starter, I think, at right tackle.
He got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt before the season, so he'll be back. But realistically, I mean, you got to get at least like 3 guys who can play.
4.
Yeah, like 3 guys you're willing to spend like good coin on, and then hope that Therese Davis and some of these young guys can mature enough. Howerton, guys like that who are redshirt freshmen or sophomores can come in and at least contribute. But you got to pick up at least 2 to 3 starters in the portal. And as we saw, we got a little bit lucky with Ayadezi and with DJ Glaze plucking these guys from lower levels and coming in and being able to play right away. But we saw last year that Heron just wasn't up to the job. So that's not always going to be the thing. And as you saw with Doomerville and with Ba, just because they come from programs like Georgia and LSU doesn't mean that they're going to be good here, because they didn't play there. And when they did play here, they weren't any good. So well, they're going to need a real talent infusion there, as well as hoping some of the young guys actually step up their game.
Jalen Gilchrist has the rating to come in and be a contributor right away. We'll see if he lives up to it. But
true freshman offensive line.
Jordan Seaton did it this year at Colorado, starting left tackle. and he almost went to Maryland last year. But
He was the number one tackle in the class as well, but
and Gilchrist is very highly rated.
he is highly
I'm not
rated.
saying start him, saying contribute. It could happen.
It's possible. I mean, I think Therese Davis was a true freshman last year, and he put in. He wasn't great, but he was a perfectly, he was comparable to what they were getting out of these upperclassmen who weren't getting the job done either. So,
and they need 2 cornerbacks. I'll say that.
Who at Maryland has offensive linemen have been good contributors on the offensive line as true freshmen? It's a very short list.
Who was the guy? I'm dropping his name
Jared,
right now.
Jared Gaither.
Jared Gaither.
Exactly who I was thinking of. Yes, Jared Gaither.
Jared Gaither.
Maybe, but in terms of starting, extremely rare.
I mean, you had a couple weird situations where I think Edwin Williams played right away at center, and he was at least serviceable the first few years, and then ended up being all conference at the end. But it's pretty rare. I mean, it's really just a height. It's just a weight and strength thing. Like, you could be good at all those things, have great feet, great technique, all that stuff, but like, you got to get bigger and stronger, and a lot of those guys just can't do it right off the top.
All right,
Did I miss any good questions?
We asked questions that were more opinion related rather than like asking for like info, like the kind of stuff you would know. But so we settled on 3 or 4 offensive linemen and 2 cornerbacks. Jeff, before we continue, we all need to know what was the phone call?
I mean, you already know it was Bob Stone.
Oh, finally.
He's Jeff. You use that joke quite a bit. I still chuckled.
Yeah, I have a bad habit.
I still chuckled. So let's just do this. Was it a player?
No.
Was it a coach?
I don't know.
Oh, that was a different answer. I think it was a coach. Let's go.
I don't know, man.
So
I've already forgotten.
What they're telling you is that someone's committing. Is that what's going on?
No, I wouldn't go that far necessarily, but there's just a lot of storylines developing and that will develop.
That are going to be in stories that you're going to write on the site?
I mean, I will definitely be reporting some stuff for sure. Yeah, I had 2 of them today, Wednesday, 2 VIP stories with some, scoop from.
On a scale of 1 to Zion Ely commits to Maryland, what are these rated?
Well, none of them's really necessarily a done deal because the portal just opened. Basketball recruiting still really up in the air. 26, there could be some things going on in football with the 26 kids. There's I wouldn't say to look for like huge breaking news tomorrow or anything, but there's a lot of storylines right now. And the good thing is, like, there's some positive stuff for people to read about in both sports, right? Basketball's looking more promising. Football recruiting is going extremely well, and they are well funded for the portal. So there's hope for next year and beyond. When you look at it, the past year has been brutal, like in terms of getting people interested or just engagement, and just the general fan attitude and apathy has been awful because last football season was solid, good ending, Music City Bowl, but then basketball the season was awful from the start, never got good even for a short stretch of time. And then football was similar this year, really rough. So that's the good news is, we have some exciting things to write about, and you feel like, maybe a new cycle could be beginning.
All right. I got 2 questions I'm going to give you that might be related to the calls you just had. We had questions from Suskirch and Indiana Jones 4 on the message board. What's our chance with Chance? Do you like our chances with Mallory for NIL offers competitive, or all things equal? Do you think Tennessee pitch to replace Ziegler makes them more the front runner? Well, first of all, was that related to the?
No, I've gone back and forth on that one though. Like, at first I didn't think they had a chance, and then I talked to some more people, no pun intended, and they do. Colby Jacobino reported last week for us that he's visiting in January, so that means there is legit interest. On the flip side, Maryland doesn't have a starting spot to offer like some schools might. Jacoby Gillespie looks great, so obviously, assuming he sticks around, he's going to take a lot of those minutes. And then there's also the NIL question. So long story short, like, there's no telling right now what their chance is or how much they'll ultimately decide that they need him, because point guard isn't necessarily a need. You have Chris Jeffrey coming in already next year, but I don't think they'd be recruiting him if they didn't want him. So, I don't think anyone knows where he's going. I think Miami's in the mix, Tennessee, Virginia Tech, maybe a little bit. I think they're throwing a lot of money out there, but it's going to be a little while before we know where he's leaning.
Next question that might be related to the calls you just got from Carcosa Terp on YouTube. Manny Hinancho, what's the deal?
He's visiting this weekend. No one has said to me he might commit, but it wouldn't shock me. He was already talking a big game about Maryland. Ely's on board, and now he's visiting immediately there afterwards. They're both talking up Maryland on Twitter, obviously. So, I wouldn't be stunned. I'm not close to making a crystal ball or anything like that. But again, if they were able to pull that off and have 2 top 5 recruits in the country, that would be really uncharted territory.
It would be pretty nice. We got 3 questions that are very similar from all over the place. Carcosa Terp, Hunter Riggs, and Joe Smith 32, all asking about the offensive coordinator to replace Gaddis. One of them asked, will Frank Reich be the offensive coordinator? One just said, predict the new offensive coordinator. So all 3 of those combined, Jeff, what's your intel on that?
The Reich would seem weird. I don't know if that, anything's possible, I guess, but long story. There hasn't been much out there on that. I've been digging. I'm told that Loxley has not really been focused on that at all right now. He's more focused on the portal, which is a full-time job by itself right now with all this money that you're allowed to spend and all the guys who are leaving. And then this guy is like saying he's going to go in the portal to test his value, but might be back. So you don't know whether you're replacing him, but then you got to hold a lot of those spots till the spring, because that's when a lot of the best players going in the portal won't be till after the bowl games. They're still playing. So I don't think he's really, or I know that he's not really focused on that. I'm sure he has some guys in mind and has some, done some work on that, but it's not a top priority. I don't think he'll make a move anytime soon.
Okay, from Terp Meister on the message board, what's the over-under on how many of the top 10 2026 Maryland high school football players locks will land? So how many top 10s from Maryland will commit to Maryland in 26?
I don't have the list in front of me, so it's hard to say.
At least one.
Like you look at this past year, it was a great class. I think they had 1 top 10 player in Maryland. They just happened to get 2 studs from Virginia and, Bryce Jenkins from DC. So even with a great class, it was still only 1 top 10 guy. So it's hard to guess without the list in front of me, but I think that they'll do better locally this coming year.
Here, Jeff, I got it pulled up real quick. Let me just say the names, and then you'd give me a gut check. All right,
Okay.
You got Zion number 1, Iheanacho number 2, Jere Edwards number 3, Kari Adams number 4, Nick Abrams number 5, Damon Hall number 6, Kobe Sarkodie number 7, Kennedy Uzoma number 8, Edward Baker number 9, Damon Ferguson number 10. A lot of St. Francis guys on there.
Top 2 for sure. Top 2 for sure.
And Damon Hall is already committed as well.
Yeah, they could easily get 4 or 5 of those guys, which is a huge number, obviously, because on the average year, they probably average 2, I would say, just because so many of the blue blood programs come into Maryland and scoop kids. But yeah, a lot of St. Francis kids, which they've made huge inroads there the past few years, thanks to Loxley and also Azar Abdul Rahim, who has a long-time relationship with the head coach over there. He was the primary recruiter for all 3 of those 2026 kids who've committed from there. And actually is the number 2 recruiter in the country right now in the 24/7 sports recruiting rankings for the class of 26, which is obviously very early, but still impressive. So yeah, I think that they'll get more than usual. But again, like the portal is so big now that, it's not always, the focus isn't always on getting every single high school kid in state, because you're going to need to get some serious talent out of the portal.
From Joe Smith 32 on the message board, over under 2.5 more football assistants fired or moving on.
I'd say under. I'd say one or two more would be my guess. I don't think there'll be news on that.
Are we saying Gaddis is officially gone at this point? I mean,
Yeah,
I know
I
it's a
think he-
fait
when he
accompli,
says
but
Yeah, he's
more, he's counting that as already happened.
starting
on
from-
top of
yeah,
Yeah.
from today, I would say probably under, maybe two, but it easily could be three. You know, you never know for sure. It's not like they're coming off a great season and you generally want to retain your whole staff after a year, although they have, you know, offensive line coach and offensive coordinator have already been let go. So that's two changes right there. I assume you could see a change at special teams, which was really bad all year. And then there's a few others that we'll have to wait and see, but I don't think, you know, as I've said before, Loxley's general way of operating with these things is to let a guy know and give him a chance to find a job, soft landing spot somewhere else rather than just firing him and summarily and making him, you know, kicking him out on the street. So there could be one of the two of those situations at play. But again, the focus is almost totally on the portal right now, I think, and both seeing who you can get and negotiating. Like, it's not even just recruiting anymore. You're negotiating with your own players. They're hearing that you're bringing this guy in for a visit, and they know that he could get 300 grand. So then all of a sudden that guy wants 300 too, and he changes his mind and leaves. It's like it's a GM situation now, not just a coach situation. It is a full-on GM management type of deal, and so that's the focus, obviously, especially because next year, I mean, he needs a bounce back. This was a really rough year. And
Here we go. Wes Brown coming through with the data. Football's last big run in Maryland recruiting was 2022 with 5 of the top 12. Last time they got number 1 and 2, 2014. They didn't get anyone else until number 26 that year. There you go. Thank you, Wes Brown.
Those Edsel years, they probably averaged like half of one per year, I'm guessing.
can't even imagine.
But like the year was when you're having a season like this and you know that the fans are on your ass, or the ones who aren't on your ass are on their ass at home instead of coming to the games, you need an immediate turnaround. And that's all about the portal rather than kids in the 26 class who probably aren't going to play any real role in college football for 2 more years.
And Seftical, to follow up on that, says, who is the GM at Maryland? It's Locks, right? Like, they're doing it all, aren't they?
I mean, he's got a guy who does a lot of stuff for him, but he is the GM. I think there's other schools where there's, you know, actual GMs who are really running a lot of it. But I think he like Bill Parcells back in the day. Remember his quote about, you know, he had to buy the groceries. He wanted to be the GM. So I think Loxley has that same mindset. He feels like he knows which guys that he needs, which guys can go, how much this one's worth, how much money he has. So yeah, he, you know, unless they hire somebody, which is possible. I think basketball, I've heard some rumblings that they could, and probably isn't a bad idea, you know, to have somebody in that role in either sport, but no, there's no GM.
Well, Wes Brown coming through again. Technically,
Yeah.
Mercy Fillets,
In name,
GM player personnel.
Yeah, he's done a good job. Came from NC State about a year ago. Has helped, you know, played a big part in that big high school class they had. So he GM in name, but nobody else is making. I don't think anyone else is making any sort of decisions, or, you know, I think Loxley's still very much in control of the operation.
From S. Blaney on the Maryland.247sports.com message board. Why can't we buy retro jerseys anywhere besides Bias? I would love to have a Grievous or an old Wilcox, for example.
Yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I saw Steve Francis, some picture of him in New York City at an autograph signing, and they had like legit, authentic Maryland Steve Francis jerseys. I was thinking, if you had those for him or Vasquez or any of those guys, you could sell a hell of a lot. I don't know. Maybe there's not as much demand as you would think.
Paul, do you
Or maybe they'd spend too much money licensing it from the players. Like, I don't know. It's hard to hard to know, but it seems like kind of a no-brainer to me.
Nickens with the 3 asks, what's the perception of Willard in the local high schools? Do players and coaches think highly of him?
He seems to be highly respected. I think coaches respect him. They know he's a good coach. He's not going to bullshit you as much as some other coaches. So I think they respect that, but I haven't done any polling lately, and high school coaches' opinions of the big state U coach is usually going to depend on how much he's recruiting their players and how much attention he's giving them. So if there's definitely some coaches in the area who thought he should have gone after this guy or that guy and didn't, so they might not be as high on him. It's often just related to that.
And to follow up on that, another Willard-based question from Brother Watt 1 on X. Based on the belief that Maryland has the players to compete this season, does it make it harder for Coach Willard? If he doesn't coach them up, especially DHS, Kapari, and Reese, will this expose his coaching abilities? That's kind of a weirdly twisted question.
Yeah, that's tough. That was an epic journey.
If I can, I would just say if you're saying is not being able to take a guy like DHS, who was a highly rated local kid, and turn him into a good basketball player, does that hurt Willard's reputation? I think maybe a little, but I think anything like that would be easily countered by seeing Queen do the stuff that he's
it's
doing.
Up to the player too, right?
It only hurts you if the guy becomes a player somewhere else. If he continues to be the same guy, then everybody's just like, that's who he was. And, if DHS, from what we've seen, the odds of him going somewhere and becoming a star, don't seem great. So, no, I don't think there's any perception problem there unless you saw one of these guys go somewhere else and become a star.
And I don't think there's kind of a local backlash potential for that type of thing in basketball the way it is or it has been in the past in local football, where you've got guys who, they send guys to Maryland and they don't succeed to the degree that those coaches feel like they should have or get the attention they should have, and then they hold a grudge afterwards. It doesn't feel like that's a thing on the basketball side.
Yeah.
From Hunter Riggs on YouTube, he asks, is Malik the truth?
Yeah, he's the truth. I mean, there's never any guarantee, especially with quarterbacks. The bust rate on quarterbacks is enormous, but he's got everything you look for: 6'5", 220, athletic, throws it around, incredible character, kid, leader. I mean, he's got the total package. There's a reason he was number 5 quarterback in the country. I think the highest quarterback, probably highest rated Maryland. I don't remember what Haskins was. Obviously, he didn't end up at Maryland, but yeah, he is. But I don't think, I wouldn't expect him to be a star next year. I think next year, the likeliest scenario, if Billy Edwards sticks around, which I actually wrote teaser, something about that on the site just now. You'll get him in, get him some reps, develop him, as Locks always says, developmental program, and then sophomore year, he'd be the man. That would be the most likely and hopeful way the whole thing will develop. But he's a top talent, there's no question.
Carcosa Terp on YouTube asks, well, actually kind of more stated a question, made a statement, but I thought you might be able to expound upon it. He said they're making a run for Xavier Chaplin, the starting left tackle from Virginia Tech. Do you know that to be true? Or
is that the kid with the supposed $1.5 million offer, or am I thinking of somebody else? I think that's him. I mean, the reality is I think most of the guys that you'll see them go after in this early period, there'll be some star power, but also there'll be those mid-level kind of guys like the Corey Bullock and Aidze, who both turned out really well last year, because so much more of the talent is going to be in the portal after the bowl games. So anyways, I'm not sure on the Virginia Tech kid, but anybody like that who's going to have a million offers and some of them for like $1 million, I would generally say right now, probably not.
Also, Carcosa Terp on YouTube, any shot at Mansour Delane or Joshua Moten?
Haven't done anything on Moten. Delane, I think, from what I'm told, is likely to go to a blue blood kind of platform, top program with huge money. And Maryland has a lot of money to spend. Like, they're fully funding this thing. So there's I'm a broken record, but there is a ton of confidence over there that they have resources to get a lot of good players. Some of them will be those kind of stars. But when it comes down to the top 1 percentile who are going to get 7 figures, again, those guys are tough to get. I think Delane probably ends up, who knows? Maybe he goes to Ohio State with his brother.
Last question I've seen in any of the areas from YouTube. Ben Linton, one more time. With Felton and Prather gone, who will be our go-to receiver next year?
That's a player to be named later.
They're not here yet.
Yeah, he's not here yet, and the guy behind him at number 2 is not here yet.
Yep.
Or maybe Octavian Smith.
I think he'll be a really good 2 or 3 potentially. He showed, he started to finally show it, that 4-star rating that he had in high school toward the end of the season. I think he had a 100-yard game. I can't remember who that was against. Made plays more regularly, but you still can't count on that small sample size to pencil him in as the number 1 or 2 guy. Maybe he becomes that, but you feel much more comfortable thinking of him as a 3 and going out and getting 2 established, proven playmakers in the portal, which I'm sure they'll do.
We got one more question. I got to pop.
Well, hey, let me jump on that first. You got Jaleel Farouk, and you've got Kobe Prentice from Alabama, who are both in the portal. Both only have 1 year left. I assume they'll probably go after both of them, but you're not going to take both of them because they only got 1 year left, and that seems a little dangerous.
Which is crazy that Kobe Prentice has 1 year left. I feel like that was
never redshirted. Yep.
I feel like that was a year ago when they got him plucked him out of nowhere, and then he blew up and Bama snagged him. But yeah, I think Farouk is definitely an interesting one. I've written about him a few times. He's the kid from Wise High School who went to Oklahoma with Caleb Williams, who was his good friend. Caleb Williams goes to USC. He sticks there, and he's had a pretty good career. There's a lot of demand from some big name schools for Farouk. He's probably, right now he's one of the top receivers in the portal. So it's not going to be, just a get it done in one day kind of situation, but a chance for him to come back home for his final year and get more playing time. I can't imagine there's a single power conference school that has more playing time at receiver to offer. It's wide open, and do it in the middle of kind of this local movement, get your final year in at home during this, what they hope is going to be a magical time in the program. So he's one to watch definitely closely, but again, he's got some big offers.
We got one more that just came in, and I have to pop this guy up. Mike Sheeler.
Mike
Sheeler. I've had some interesting tailgates and parties with Mike Sheeler. I might even be able to play a clip for you of Mike Sheeler in a second here. Is football putting more emphasis on spending the NIL and portal or recruiting?
I assume he means high school recruiting.
Right.
Portal by a mile. The high school kids, again, 90% of them aren't going to help you much right away. And now that was already, a reason not to invest as much as them. And now so many of them, you look at Brandon Jacob, he's the best player they've lost so far. He played a little bit as a true freshman, probably would have started next year. So had all the opportunity in the world, and he's still transferred. So you can't spend it on the high school kids. Some of them will get it. I'm sure Zion Ely is, he's probably done eating at McDonald's for the rest of his life, or for the next few years at least. But other than that kind of guy, it's the money is largely going to be dedicated to the portal, because those are the guys who are going to help you immediately. And again, you got to turn it around immediately.
Mike Sheeler says innocent until ... But let me just play you this.
This is Mike Sheeler, you're listening to IMS Radio. This is Mike Sheeler, you're listening to IMS Radio.
Sounds inebriated.
Not quite Mike Grinnon levels.
That was in Austin, Texas. Comes
from a
Texas
great
game.
family, one of the best families around Maryland
family.
Sports.
All respect to the Don.
And he played on the lacrosse team.
That's right.
Legitimately played on the lacrosse team. So that is a legit bumper from an actual
And I think he manages the lacrosse program's NIL deal while we're giving people info that probably they're not that.
And
worried
since you
about.
mentioned it, and since he in the chat, Mike says Grinnon's takes were worse. You guys want to hear Mike Grinnon's awful takes? I've done it before, but it's always worth playing again. Here we go.
This is Mike Grinnon, and we are listening to IMS Radio, the home of the Terps. National Championship, ACC Championship years, we're back.
I love that. We're the home of the Terps. We didn't have to pay like millions of dollars in licensing fees.
Yeah, that's part of that. I like it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, those free throws, they were awesome.
There's another one that was even
trying
funnier.
to get Larry to be his wingman that night, if I recall.
It was really funny, but yeah.
I'm gonna put that on the site at the home of the Terps and see how quickly some lawyer emails me.
Yeah. Mike Schiller said, pretty sure that wasn't a script. No, it was not.
No.
But it was a fun time hanging out with you guys and grinning that night. That was really good. All right. We have answered close to 30 questions.
Not bad.
And I think,
Not bad.
and in the middle of the show, Jeff got some very important phone calls. So important, he had to leave the show. And we're all going to find out the contents of those phone calls
momentarily
in the next day or two. The next articles you guys get, that's what you're going to see. So there you go. We're all guessing what it is. We tried to pin him down a little bit. He wasn't budging.
It was Norlander actually. He said, "Fuck Paul."
I respect that. My argument hasn't aged well since the 2014 or what have you.
No. The problem is not that he might possibly say Maryland wasn't as good as Purdue. Okay, that's fine to say that. The problem is that he came on a Maryland postgame show and didn't watch the game and was getting all kinds of things incorrectly, and we started calling him out on it. Then he got defensive and started attacking Maryland. That's what the problem was.
I should have never looked. I can see a vein bulging. I should have never brought that up.
It's not that someone might possibly say Purdue might be better at basketball than Maryland. Okay, fine.
I don't even remember how we got to that point, but that's just the one thing that stuck with me. Other than the fact that he didn't watch the game, and we were all jazzed up from beating Iowa State, who was top 15 that day.
He started trashing Maryland on the Maryland show, and we're like, dude, what are you doing?
No, it wasn't really him who called. It was actually Jeffrey Pooler, and he said he has indeed gotten bigger. He wanted you to know.
It's good to know.
Yes.
That guy, he's probably like 32 now with
I know.
That was long. That's the thing. We've been on the air for 10 years now. So we've got some old man stories now. They've aged quite a bit.
I thought I had, hang on. I do have it. Hang on. You guys are going to love this. It's going to take me 2 seconds here. It takes a second to load it up. I got to load it in here. At the end of the interview, after he hung up with us, Paul said,
"Dude's full of shit. That dude's full of shit.
Sorry.
That dude's full of shit."
There we go. That's from that episode.
That was one of my best moments of my life right there. There was just the time that it rolled right off the tongue. The timing felt good.
We still got to do an episode of top 10 all-time moments in show history.
Oh my God. Hey,
I don't know. That might only amuse us.
I gotta know.
We've also done 400 episodes now. That's
I know.
It's a lot.
Hang on.
I don't remember a lot of stuff.
I found the other grinning clip. I've got to play this because it's hilarious.
Hey, this is Michael Grinnon. Just want to check in here. And there's no sports without Larry France. Larry, we appreciate all your updates. Let's go Maryland. Boom.
They don't exist. They don't even exist without Larry France.
Entire sporting universe.
Dude, I'm telling you.
That's great.
It was an amazing night. It was
all right. Just end the show on that. You can't top that. That's beautiful. That's
there's
so
all
good.
kinds of.
There are no sports without Larry France. That's all you need to know.
Everybody knows it.
Everybody knows on all your platforms.
A lot of people are saying it.
Many people are saying.
Many people.
Many people are saying, "Here you go."
How many beers have you had? Because that's the stupidest fucking question anybody's ever asked.
That's not
I didn't know Larry had this treasure trove. We need to.
I I got stuff, dude.
All right, we need to work through Larry's treasure trove, and then we need to do a clips episode because we've earned that. We've been doing this for 10 years. You've watched us age, heard us age. We deserve a little bit of a retro.
And the
The
90%
thing
of our audience who has no clue what the hell we're talking about will get a little bit of context on our inside
jokes and
All
history.
of my clips are from the first 4 years that I did before the break. Since then, I haven't been good about getting good clips after every episode, like I was doing back then. So,
well, those are funnier though because they're old and we didn't do the YouTube back then, so it was just all the Podbean and whatnot. And I don't even know if that still exists. So, I'm glad you captured some of that stuff.
do you remember when I accosted the basketball team?
I do.
There was so the backstory.
Philemon, right?
He was part of it.
Yeah.
So the backstory is at the football game, and Cliff Warren was walking the basketball team
Yeah,
around.
Cliff was the one who shut you down.
And I saw them, and I'm like, I need to get bumpers. I need to get bumpers. And I was running around asking all of them, and Warren's like, gotta stop it. Here you go.
Get a picture. This is DeMonte Dodd, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Hang on.
We gotta go now. Thank you.
No, where's Rashid? Damn
Here
it.
it comes.
Thank you, DeMonte.
Damn it.
Rashid, damn it.
Jake, have you heard of IMS
Jake
Radio?
Lehman.
I'm one of the hosts. Come here. Say, this is Jake Lehman, and I'm listening to IMS Radio.
I gotta
Say it,
go.
please. Varun, hey.
Varun, you got desperate.
IMS Radio, and
You got
this
desperate
is
at
Varun
the
Ram,
end.
and you're listening to IMS Radio.
This is Varun Rob, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
Thank you. What do we got here? Checo, come here. Say, this is Michael Tchaikovsky. You're listening to IMS Radio. Come on, man. You heard IMS Radio, right? I can say that. Rashid, this is IMS?
I can't, sir. I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
I can't, sir.
That's
I'm
so
sorry,
good.
sir.
Rashid, damn it. I forgot about that. He was like one step away from being like, equipment manager Billy.
Well,
See, Larry's shamelessness and willingness to like go after anybody is what makes this show what it is, man. Like I don't got that stuff in me. I mean, that's why I went to journalism school and I'm not a journalist in any way or shape or fashion.
He'd be a hell of a salesman.
Oh, dude. Oh my God. Yeah.
All right, we've been doing this for an hour and a half. We gotta let Jeff go and write up all that intel he just got after he tells us what it is.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around, especially on our stroll through memory lane. People are laughing and saying I'm in tears and stuff, so that's good. It was funny. It was funny.
And there will be more of that. We got to build that up for maybe the summer when things get a little slow.
Please do us a favor. If you haven't clicked like yet, please do that for us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. It helps us with all of our metrics and all of those things.
Subscribe,
and we're
like, comment, review,
right.
all that good stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you guys very much. I'm not sure. I'm going to be leaving. You guys know I'm gone for 9 days in the middle of this.
Yeah, we're gonna have a goofy holiday schedule, so please follow us on Twitter. Pay attention on the Blue Sky, even everywhere you go for that stuff, and we'll try and make it public what we're gonna do. There's not a lot of actual sports going on, thankfully, during that period, so hopefully we won't miss much.
And don't they have games on like both of the Wednesdays when we normally are doing shows? So
well, Christmas and New Year's are both Wednesdays this year, so that's
what it is.
Up to. Yeah. So like I said,
I don't know when we'll be back. We're not sure yet right now.
We will try to make sure that it's publicized well. So just stay tuned.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. We will see you guys next time. This is IMS Radio.